Hello, everybody. Sorry once again. We're late as usual, but we got some exciting things happening as always because due to Jeff Howard's constant bugging, not only are we on YouTube Live, and please subscribe because that is very, very important to us. But at the same time, simultaneously, if that's even a word, is that a word? We are also streaming live on Twitch as we speak. Hello, Twitchers. Welcome to the show. Now, before we get started on our Ant-Man and the Wasp and Whitney, I've got a special request from Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm going to take you there right now. Jeff Howard.
Wow, I feel so special.
Oh, you want to see that again?
Those are giant.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
That's kind of big, yeah.
Jeff, everybody, Jeff, and we're waiting for Greg Russell to call in. Jeff wanted 60 seconds to tell us something about some whiny story about the purge or something. What's on your mind, Jeff?
It's not that it's whiny. It's just that I was really offended and upset by this latest purge. I don't know if the other critics have seen it. But the whole purpose of the purge is to have a day of lawlessness, to allow mankind to purge themselves of the natural kind of anger or whatever the instinct that we supposedly have from the caveman days. And what I loved about the movies, the previous ones, is that it always reflected on the worst about mankind. Not everyone participated in the purge, but some psychopaths did, or somebody who wanted revenge, whatever that special ridiculous reason it was. And the first hour of the first purge was brilliant. It set everything up. It showed how it was going to take this experiment for the first time. All of Staten Island was going to be cornered off, kind of like Escape from New York with Kurt Russell way back then. And they were going to see how this experiment would work. Now, here's my problem with it. Instead of it being the purge, like the first couple movies, where it's based on individuals and their behavior, they totally did. I don't care if it's a spoiler or not, because this is bullshit. Oh, family friendly. Sorry. But what they did is they made it totally raceful, meaning that the government, the new founding fathers, wanted to go in and eliminate, euthanize, ethnic cleansing low-income people, mostly Latinos and the blacks that were in Staten Island. Now, how they did that, they sent in a militia ahead of time of all these different mercenaries, and they were dressed as Klansmen. They were dressed as white nationalists. Even the leader was dressed like an SS officer. So this completely changed everything. So they went totally a different way with the purge, making it about race, about even them talking about how we don't want to provide for low-income people. We want to destroy them all. We don't want to feed them. We want to, have them on the dole anymore. That completely changes what the purge is about. So not only was I offended by that, but they went over the top with the violence. They went to headlines by taking people hiding out in a church and mowing them all down, by going to these low-income tower buildings, the Park buildings, and started killing all these people door to door. And it was all the white racist militia, and that changes the purge completely. They should be ashamed of themselves, and I was offended, and I'm pissed.
Well, I'm glad I didn't go.
Yeah, well, that was more than 60 seconds, but what's going on here with these buttons? All right, so look who joined us. Everybody's here.
Hey!
Hello.
All right.
I did try earlier.
Hi, Greg.
Hey, are you in Paris yet?
What?
Are you in Paris yet?
Yeah, Greg, there was a little bit of venting since you weren't here that you're going to Paris. Tell us what's going on. Tell us what's going on.
Actually, I'll be there for the Mission Impossible red carpet as well as the junket. So looking forward to it. That's one of the countries I haven't been to yet.
Well, we're all jealous. And by the way, what's up with that upshot, Greg? You got to do a little bit of trim in there, buddy.
Uh-oh.
All right, now.
Do it like this. Hello, how's that?
There we go, much better.
There we go.
By the way, now, in case you joined us late, we just heard about the purge. But even though this is an Ant-Man, we're also going to talk about Whitney. And I got a chance to see Whitney, I think, last week. Give me a shout out. Who all saw Whitney?
I saw it. I saw it yesterday.
Greg, did you see
Last
Whitney?
week.
No, not yet. But I did check out everything there was to check out about it, and it looks like a fascinating documentary.
Okay, well, as always, there's no spoilers. So I want to just go around the room real quick about
What
this.
happens at the end?
Yeah, Oh,
She
too
takes
soon.
a bath. That's
Too
all I know.
soon.
She takes
Too
a bath.
soon. Too soon.
Bad man. You're a bad man.
Spoiler free, so make sure you don't give anything away, even though Greg sort of hinted at the ending of Whitney. I tell you what, though, there is an ending of Whitney that to me was mind-bogglingly. I had no idea, shocking, yeah. First of all, the movie takes a look at Whitney's, from the beginning all the way to the drugs to the end. And we get to see behind the scenes, and get to see her camp, and we learn some things about Whitney that it made me sad. I kept thinking about this movie after it was over, because if Whitney was here and born in today's day and age, where everything is acceptable, whether you're gay or her life would have been completely different. But I'm not going to give away what happened and the reason what shaped Whitney and what gave her decisions. But I kept thinking about.
I will.
Oh, you will? I don't want to be too.
It's a documentary. It's like you're not. It's a documentary. You're not going to give any spoilers away. There's some revelations in it, but overall, the movie is very very forward and very frank about that. And let's see what Bonnie, you saw it. So I agree with you, Chuck. I came out just sad as all hell. I really was.
That was my reaction. I just felt more and more sad. Listen, I got to interview her years ago for Waiting to Exhale, which I thought she was seemed together and everything. But I have to tell you, like, my eye could not stay away from that giant ring on her finger. I remember doing that. I'm thinking, that ring that Bobby Brown had given her was about 8,000 carats. It was the biggest thing I'd ever seen in my life at the time. And I'm not even exaggerating. It was so huge that I could barely even concentrate on talking to her because of that ring. Like, it was crazy.
Never noticed a ring at all.
Okay, well, it was like my first thing with her.
Well, no.
But anyway, she seemed, look, for when you're doing a junket or an interview with somebody, you're pretty much together for the most part, that people that we talk to, so we don't really know all the stuff that was going on behind the scenes and everything with her. And at that point, she was probably on the fence. She had already been taking drugs, but not as crazy. But I do have to say, the one thing that I did come away with all this time, I kept saying to people, if she hadn't married Bobby Brown, she would still be alive. And I take that back now. I don't blame him 100% for her death.
Well, no, I look at it a little bit differently than you, because Whitney, some things happened to Whitney and they shaped her, and she felt she needed to be married. She felt that America, that her fans wanted her to have a husband and kids, but that wasn't the way her, let's face it, she had a girlfriend. And I think if she didn't, like you said, if she didn't marry, but I think she'd still be alive. I really do. I think with the events that happened to her and confused her because of the fact of her sexuality, I honestly felt that is all put her down the spiral path.
Yeah, it's confusing. It's hard to make that prediction. Obviously, we'll never know, obviously, but it just at the end of the day, yes, so sad, because her daughter went in the same direction. She and Bobby were terrible parents. I mean, worse than I even ever imagined. I didn't realize it was that bad. And the way that Bobby Christina, it's just so tragic, the whole thing. And it just made me, after I watched the movie, I went in my car and I put my Spotify on of all the Whitney Houston hits. I had to listen to them on the way home again, because I just was like, that woman, her voice was just incredible. She was an incredible performer. And then at the end, what you see is shock, truly shock.
Jeff, what were your takeaways from this?
Well, I'm Generation X, so I grew up with Whitney, especially that first album. I remember doing family trips to California. We would play that album over and over and over till we memorized every word. And my overall reaction coming out of this movie was, it's the same old story. It's the same old story of so many talented musicians succumbing to drugs, to the inner circle, to people telling them the wrong thing. She had a tremendous upbringing. She had a great mother. She was solid in the church. She sang in the choir. And I disagree with you, Bonnie. I think Bobby Brown was a considerable influence on her. And then to the point at the end of her life, she was admitting doing drugs. She was like, it was a source of pride. And not only that, her estranged from her father, so it's just, all of it, the family was a breakdown towards the end of her life. So at first I came out going, this is no different than every major rock star that has succumbed to drugs and all that. Another American tragedy. It really was.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, go ahead. There's only three of us. Bonnie, why don't you go ahead and give us a grade?
I'm going to give it B+. Very informative. I learned a lot, and yeah, and it was just good to look back at, you know, some of the old footage of her and stuff we've never seen, things that she said on camera, like, whoa. She makes some references to Paula Abdul and Janet Jackson. Interesting. But I thought it was very well, and it's directed by Kevin McDonald, who, you know, he's a features director. He's given us some great stuff. I thought he did a great job putting this all together. There was a lot to work from.
Yeah, Jeff.
And he had access to the family, which other documentaries did not have. And not only that, it was a really frank and honest discussion. If you saw the early photos of Whitney, my gosh, she eludes being gay. I mean, you could see the way she dressed, the way she hung out with Robin, and they didn't really concentrate much on that. They just kind of mentioned it, and then Robin was gone. They didn't mention after Bobby Brown came in the picture. But overall, I think it's a very informative documentary on one of the greatest singers we've ever had in the 20th century, and I give it a B too.
A B for Jeff, and I'm going to leave that B up there for me as well. I really came away with this. I thought it was a really well done documentary. And I cringed when I heard him say, "Oh, I didn't know she was on drugs." Yeah, right. Oh, come on.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, come on. But you're right.
Her life was The Bodyguard. Her life was that movie. That's at the end of this movie. I'm like, oh my God, that was written for her. That is her life. She was a prisoner in her own success.
And the one thing is, her last project, when we saw that Whitney, when we found out that she was getting better and she was, you know, but she couldn't go home because she had nothing going for her. And the fact that she had nothing going for her is what set her over the edge, and just absolutely heartbreaking.
And she was trying to sing her famous song at the end. I was cringing. I couldn't look at the screen, but she was trying to sing her signature song. Reminded me of Frank Sinatra when he was on the road too long with giant TVs for karaoke, and he would say, "Where am I? What's going on?"
Yeah.
It just, it was a sad note to the end of her career. She couldn't do a comeback. She tried, and I don't know what, it was awful. It was so sad. I'm so sad even thinking about it.
Yeah, I know. Well, let's move on to hopefully a little bit better and more funnier. Let's talk about the Ant-Man and the Wasp, which is, of course, the sequel to the extremely funny, and I love the first one. And what was interesting about this movie for me is, of course, this is the first movie post Avengers, Infinity War. We were going to see if this had any reaction to the universe and so forth. And who doesn't love Paul Rudd? And in fact, even Paul Rudd loves playing this character.
You know, one of the things that I really like about playing this character is that he is thrown into these extraordinary circumstances. I mean, truly shrinking and flying around on ants and entering quantum realms and life-threatening stuff. And yet, one thing that we've always tried to sustain, when I say we, I mean me, because I speak of myself in plurals, is this way of dealing with everything with a little bit of a sense of humor and not giving into the threat, but kind of a carefree attitude about it. And that's fun to do.
I love Paul Rudd. Am I right? Does everybody love Paul Rudd here?
Absolutely.
They do.
All right, so I got to throw this. I'm sorry, guys. I got to throw this to Jeff because there's nobody can explain a movie in condensed short amount of time than good old Jeff from Vegas.
Vegas Film Critic. Yes, there it is. Essentially, we're back 3 years later. Ant-Man is on house arrest, and he's, after his debacle with the Avengers earlier. And now 3 years later, Hope and Hicks, Michael Douglas and eventually Lily come back because they has some sort of subatomic memory in his mind that could maybe link and to find Michelle Pfeiffer, who was Michael Douglas's wife. So it's all about him escaping house arrest and going to this world of subatomic it's just this quantum physics. It's really a mind-blowing Avengers type movie, but it's never been done before. I mean, I was looking for some sort of standard, action hero movie, and it really got a lot of science in this one. That's what I really liked about it. So you're going to see things in this movie you have not seen before.
Yeah, I agree. Now, one thing that I couldn't get away from was somebody's Facebook page about how much they loved this movie over and over again. It is.
You know, a benchmark for me coming out of a film is if I am smiling from ear to ear when it was over. And I just loved this film because there were so many things going on in this. One of the things is that, you know, I love the relationships that we get going in this film. For example, the relationship between Paul Rudd and his son, and the relationship between Evangeline and the relationship between Michael Douglas and him. Even and Nina and feels many parts of this. So we had kind of movie that it was a superhero movie, genuinely a family film that kids could enjoy it and adults could enjoy it. It was just most fun I've had it this summer. That's
All right, now Bonnie, what were your thoughts? What you enjoy? Were you waiting for this thing to come?
Yes, I was waiting for. Well, as you said earlier, who doesn't love Paul Rudd? Seriously, I'll watch him read the phone book. He is so lovable in this. And what I liked about this one, it's one of Marvel's pretty much lightest, most laid-back movies in recent memory. That's not a bad thing, people. It's so much fun, and the film is low on stakes, big on funny set pieces and action scenes. There's great action in it, nonstop. As Tim said, I love the relationships between him and Evangeline Lilly, and then with Michael Douglas and Michelle Pfeiffer. It all fit very well. I have to just say the only thing that didn't work for me that much, I wasn't crazy about the villain, the ghost in this. She kind of bugged me for some reason. Can't really put my finger on why, but that storyline to me was a little bit like, whatever. I could have done without it. But other than that, I mean, I just think it's so much fun. And highlight, of course, Michael Pena. Oh my gosh, he is so funny, as he was in the first one too.
Yeah, but he was funnier in the first one. I really do.
And that one thing that he does that they do, I don't want to give it away. That is just brilliant. I love it. I love it.
Speaking of lovable, who doesn't love Greg Russell from the Movie Show Plus?
Hello. Yeah, I agree with everyone. I enjoyed the movie. It was funny, good time, and Paul Rudd and Chris Pratt are both kind of like in that same category. Who doesn't love them? I mean, they're just two lovable guys. And like I said, it was a fun trip, and it's always great to see Michael Douglas as well as Michelle Pfeiffer, in films. And I'm just happy also that his buddies returned in the band, like Michael Pena and the rest of the guys. They're just kind of like the greatest backup band in the world.
They are.
there was one
like he's Elvis and they're the whatever they were, the Doors or whatever.
The one thing that stood out to me was the post-credit scene that we know in all of these Marvel films. I'm not going to say anything about it, but it was so clever.
Yeah.
How it.
Okay, what he's talking about is what we are exactly not going to tell you about.
I didn't say.
About 60 seconds into the end into the credits, there is probably one of the most jaw-dropping after credit sequences that we've seen in a long time. That you cannot, if you do go see it, don't ruin it for anybody, because my jaw was on the floor for pretty much the rest of the day.
Yeah,
it was
really
genius.
Mm-hmm.
Greg?
It was genius.
Or Jeff?
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah,
I
had a
like
couple.
thinking back to Ryan Reynolds in Deadpool, the latest one. His little thing at the end of the credits. It was just hilarious. I'm quite sure there are probably still two people out there who haven't seen the movie, so I won't spoil it for them. But that was just funny too.
And a couple of things. I disagree with you, Bonnie. I don't think the Ghost was a villain at all, especially after you figure out what her storyline is. It's Walton Goggins who wanted the technology to exploit that Michael Douglas had, but he disappeared after the first hour of the movie. Where did Walton Goggins go? And I think also one of the greatest characters in the movie is San Francisco itself, because I love movies that have car chases in the most ridiculous mountainous city in the world. And not only that, the cars are shrinking, they're growing. I mean, what a creative car chase that it had in that. How does Paul Rudd's character, who in the first movie was this petty thief, how does he afford a house like that in San Francisco? That drove me crazy.
Well,
it's
what drove me crazy is the stupid things in the movie. First of all, I want to mention before I forget, what a great couple of years Walter Goggins is having. They made a big deal in the first movie about Michael Douglas not being able to shrink down because he hadn't designed the helmet, which causes him problems, which, to shrink up and down. Yet they're shrinking around in these cars up and down without any kind of helmet on. But then I thought, well, maybe
They're
there's
shrinking
something.
buildings.
Exactly. Maybe there's something in the car that's like a giant helmet or something. But because they made such a big deal about Michael Douglas not being able to shrink anymore. And not only do they shrink in the cars, but then Michael Douglas shrinks again. But he was also in a machine. So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna give it a little
Chuck,
bit of leeway.
There's
And
more
all
than
of you,
just-
did you notice how many buttons and switches in this movie? They're constantly pushing buttons and making switches. I was laughing at that. And also, the director even has a nod, Peyton Reed, to The Big Lebowski, because Paul Rudd is in his robe the entire first half of the movie.
Right.
So there's all these Lebowski kind of references in there. But watching them switch every time they had to shrink down or do something, they must have hit switches like 200 times in this movie. It was really comical.
Okay, let's go around the room because how great is it? And I'm like thinking, where's she been? How great is it to see Michelle Pfeiffer again? Bonnie.
Yeah, I'm so happy to see her. I thought she looked amazing as always, and it worked. It really, really worked having her there. Yeah, I was thrilled to see her in this film.
Jeff.
And the continuation of girl power. She just wasn't Michelle Pfeiffer. She was a scientist. She's the reason she got rescued. She figured out equations and quantum physics, and she was Michael Douglas's equal, let alone his wife. So I thought that was really empowering to see such a strong character. And it reminded me of Fantastic Voyage when they went into the quantum microscopic world. I just found that I want a whole movie like that.
Tim.
I loved it. I've loved Michelle Pfeiffer in so many films, but in the superhero genre ever since Batman Returns as woman, and just to see her on the screen, plus those close resonates, and so it's just great to see her on the film.
And Greg.
I've been in love with Michelle Pfeiffer since she was in Hollywood Nights with Tony Danza about 40 years ago. Remember that movie?
Yeah.
Her first film.
But,
First film.
Yeah, and she has always done a great job. And like you said, it is great to see her as a woman in power, and also she's just a great actress. So she just did a fabulous job. So loved it.
I took my wife
Good comments, Peanut.
Yeah. I took my wife to see it thinking that she saw the first one, and lo and behold, she did not. So, interesting enough, as soon as we got home, we watched the first movie, which is far superior. I'm sorry, when you watch them back to back. The first one's funnier. It's more action. There's
Darker.
more. Yeah, darker. There's more. I mean, those great moments when they're fighting and it's so energetic, and all of a sudden the camera pans back and it's a train just that and it falls over. And there's so many great moments like that. But still a very good movie. And surprisingly, what I learned from my wife is she didn't need to see the first one to enjoy it. So So Bonnie, I ask you, which was better, the first one or the sequel?
I agree with you. I think I like the first one better because it was fresh and something different and everything. But you know what? I really enjoyed this one too. But I think I give the first one a little bit of an edge.
Jeff, who's wearing my Ant-Man shirt.
Yes, I like the first one better. The second one comes in a close second, but because it didn't have a strong villain, that's my only criticism of it. Because I wanted something a little bit more at stake than the government coming after him all the time. I thought, what's the guy's name who played the FBI agent or whatever? I just thought he failed on every joke.
Yeah.
It was embarrassing. He failed every joke. They should have done it once. Plus, there were some inconsistencies when they went to go check him at home and he wasn't there. It's like, how did that work? So, but overall, I think this is a lot of fun. It's going to be a big hit. And I like how it's different from all the other Marvel films.
Tim.
I'm going to be maybe, depending on what Greg says, the lone dissenter. I love the first one, but again, the relationship that happened in this, the humor level, as well as all of the sequences in this, maybe gives it just a slight over the first one. I still love.
Greg.
I have to agree with everyone. Still like the first one. It still is like here. This one's like here. Because the second ones are always darker. When they do follow-up movies and different things like that. Like you said, it was a lot of fun. And I dare say, I'm going to go out on the limb right now. I think it's going to be number one this weekend.
Oh, I think you're not going out on
I don't think. And by the way, and speaking of, as we said, don't leave 60 seconds after the credits start. But you can missed the final scene at the very, very end credits. It was cute, but not worth staying an extra 4 minutes of credits to see.
It
All
was
right.
Still real that first one.
Yeah, that's true. All right, I'm going to leave the 4 shot up, and we're going to cover Greg's face because we hate him because he's going to Paris and we're not. So let's go around the room. Bonnie, grade the movie for us.
I give it a B.
Jeff.
I give it a B too.
B2, really? Tim, I know you got to give me something higher than that.
I'm gonna give it a B plus. I'll give it a B.
Really? Greg?
And then to trump on that, I'll give it a B plus plus.
That we don't have a B plus plus.
Okay, then B plus. Times
B plus too. I'm going to give it a B plus too. I had a great time. Really fun movie. I love Paul Rudd. I can watch him read the phone book and he would make me laugh. So and I love
What's this phone book thing you guys are talking about?
yeah.
Phone book thing.
Back when you were younger, remember back when you were younger, everything was younger. Like I was just telling somebody the other day, sidebar, I said, we were trained from birth. Do not get into a car with strangers. And what do? We
Right.
get an Uber every day now. It's like the world has
Right.
changed. So we talk about phone books and we talk about things like, and people look at us like we're crazy, but
Chuck, I'll say things have changed. They're sending people from Detroit to Paris.
I know.
you mean
I guess
from, not Paris, the movie show plus. It's, how can they not send the movie show plus,
And Detroit was founded by the French, so I guess they're doing this as a payback. But
All right,
I
guys.
Okay.
can honestly say this though to all of you, and this is the truth. I wish you were all going because I've had some of the best time anytime I've crossed the pond with honestly each and every one of you. We've all had great adventure, especially when we're all in London. So I wish
That
you-
is true. All right, let's plug ourselves. Let's start with Jeff. Jeff, give us a plug.
Hi, you can check out my movie reviews and interviews at vegasfilmcritic.com. It's a portal to all of my social media, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I'd appreciate it. And if you subscribe and give me a holler. I'd love to talk to you.
Bonnie.
Okay, you can find everything I do on smartentertainmentgroup.com. Also go to my YouTube channel, Movieguy, and I'm on Sirius XM every Thursday at 4 p.m. channel 167.
Tim.
I'm on elmoonboston.com. I just started doing some more Kaleidoscope reviews. It is part of the Film Critics Association. Find me on Facebook. Find me on YouTube. Find me on Twitter and Instagram. Basically, I'm just a social media.
And, of course, Mr. Paris himself, Greg Russell.
Bonjour, monsieur. Comment allez-vous? Ah, yes. No, you can check me out on Live in the D on the NBC station here in Detroit. You can also stream it live on clickondetroit.com. That's their website. Plus, follow us on movieshowplus.com and check out Movie Show Plus here locally in Detroit on Channel 38. Also, the Greg Russell Movie Show on newradiomedia.com and right here with Chuck every week.
Yeah, no, I'm going to give, I want to go show you our tweet of the week since we are on the Ant-Man and the Wasp. Oh, how sweet. Is that not the sweetest? Hey, and I also got to give a tweet of the day. I got to do this. My wife's a teacher. Bonnie, go ahead.
It's hard for me to read this. Oh, me!
We couldn't be prouder.
Prouder of my son, who is officially now a teacher. It was very small, so I couldn't barely when I did it. Oh, that was a nice. Yes, he's starting teaching lucky students in this fall, so we're very proud.
Excellent.
It seems like I can't believe that. It seems like yesterday he was bar mitzvah.
Yeah.
I feel old.
Both your sons
Oh,
are
yeah.
kids.
Big congrats, Bonnie.
Yeah,
Thank
congrats.
you.
All right, thanks, everybody. Hope to see you next week.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.